What is going on, Governor's Chisgule here, and if you're looking to get a top placement in the arms training event, we've got you covered. Stick around where we show you exactly how you can get a top placement, or at least do better than you've ever done before. Hello my friends and welcome back. This video is going to be covering the arms training event where you battle Arms Master Lohar in a series of rounds and try to get the highest score you possibly can. If you like Rise of Kingdoms guides that help you get value and smash your enemies, consider smashing that subscribe button for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos. We're a sponsored content creator and boy oh boy, it is amazing how all of the videos we have been doing recently have been stacking on one another. There are going to be multiple times where I say card up in the top to reference different videos you should go watch after this that lay the groundwork for proving why it is what we're going to share with you in just a moment actually works for slaying the Arms Master Lohar training and for doing better than you've ever done before. So here's going to be the order in this video. First and foremost, we're going to talk about what has changed in arms training, and it is different than it was before. Secondly, we're going to talk about the very best combos to use for arms training, and we'll go a little bit into the builds, but only very briefly. Last but not least, we're going to showcase the sequence of skills we might recommend to power through this, and we'll lay some ground principles for how you pick which one you're going to battle next, and then also show you a sequence that we found to work out really well. So first and foremost, what's changed in arms training? In the rules, and yes, we read these, card up in the top for the live stream where we battled against both 3 versions of arms training on my main and also 3 versions on my restart. Maybe there's 2 versions on my restart. This set of rules clearly points out that buffs and skills which provide a damage bonus against barbarians do not work. So this is very important. Commanders like Minamoto, Double C, Boudica, and so on do not get special value for doing this event. Very important note, okay? This is really the biggest change that's happened. In addition, from the last time that we did this, these skills have in fact changed a fair amount, and I do think that these skills they've chosen are a good bit more competitive. We'll talk about why that is the case. So let's get into the pairings here. They're going to be super relevant. And the number one thing you might think would drive the pairing choices is going to be this right over here. There are 2 starting skills for Lohar before you've even chosen a skill to activate, and you will choose one at the very start of this fight. The starting skills are reducing damage received by cavalry by 20%, and also reducing damage taken from archers by 20%. Now, this might make you think that you'd want to go all in on infantry. Let me tell you a few combos that we tried. First and foremost, I have heard very good things, and we'll just switch over to our main. I've heard very good things about the combination of using Guan with Isong. And so we tried out a Guan Isong combo. It did okay. It did, top 10 placement for me, which is really solid. I know people don't all have Guan or Isong, and we'll do some epic pairings in just a moment. But we did that Guan Isong because they both do huge amounts of damage. I thought that was going to be great. It was fine. Then we rocked a Guan Alex and did even better. And we used full infantry in both of these configurations. I thought that was really great. But then I said, you know what? What if, gosh darn it, we try cavalry anyways? And we bet Negan. He actually bet us 50 million gold that cavalry would not make the top 10. And using a combination I am quite confident you would not have expected. I used Khan with Alexander the Great. That's right, Alexander the Great, to get 2nd place and to beat my previous 2nd place score. So cavalry can be fine, and that's in part because we've got a lot of boosts to cavalry, which we're going to talk about in just a second. But if I were picking an optimal combo, I do think that Khan Alex is really nuts with cavalry. I also think Saladin could be fine. I'm less excited about Minamoto, Double C. I'm less excited about Attila and Takeda, although perhaps they're fine, because importantly, healing does not work in this game mode, so you cannot get healed. And in addition, the other problem is that because of the new skills that are on, arms training Lohar, he is going to remove debuffs and remove buffs from you, and that is honestly very powerful in countering Attila and Takeda. So they might be fine. We didn't actually test it, but that's not where I would put my money, okay? Now, if you're looking at epics, if you have a legendary with a rage engine, you would want to pick, in my opinion, a number one choice here is Osman. Osman brings more troops, which is absolutely crucial in this game mode. Osman is going to do huge amounts of damage every time a skill is used, and he does only do single target damage, which is perfect here. Commanders that actually do surprisingly well, like astonishingly well, include none other than Sun Tzu, which you might have expected, but also Herman, I think, is really spectacular here. He does very, very well in battling down the Arms Master Lohar. That's in part because huge amounts of damage to the single target, reducing the target's rage. Maybe you'll get value out of the silence, and you generate rage over here as well. He's honestly very, very good, especially when you pair with a commander like Osman, who wanted a way to generate rage. I think that's a solid way to go. Now, when you go and you look at equipment, if you do have some options and choices, and at the very top end, some players will, I did feel that for gear, you want to prioritize gear that gives health. Card up in the top if you haven't seen the video where we covered why health is potentially the very best stat in Rise of Kingdoms. The testing wasn't perfect, but I think it is most likely to be accurate. Health is the stat you want to hunt for. So using something like Gatekeeper's Shield, if you had it with a special talent, over using, something like the Staff of the Lost, I think is the name, is going to be a better choice. So here's the Staff of the Lost, offering defense. When you have such a clean choice, I would go for health. We did really like Silent Trial for reducing the rage of the target, and I did also use Skolas's Lucky Coin, but I will call attention to the fact there is a skill that makes it so shielding is not effective. That won't matter too much if you're using Alexander the Great, because you're going to pick that skill last so that you don't lose the benefit of his active skill. Now, getting a look at the talents that we use here, I generally think a good Canyon build will be very good for arms training Lohar. That is largely in part because of the fact that you don't want March Speed in Canyon, you don't want March Speed or March Speed reduction here. So if I look at the talents I've chosen on my Guan, I chose a build here that really doesn't have much March Speed at all. Another thing I want to call attention to is the fact that if you pick a second commander that does high amounts of skill damage, there is really nice synergy in a lot of the different skills that are available here. In a perfect world, I actually would have Naked Rage instead of the Latent Power, but you get the idea. You want to go all in on damage here. In a similar vein, when we used Archon as the primary, these are the same talents that we use for Soroli, just super high amounts of damage here. That was the goal. Minimize the amount of march speed we have, maximize the amount of damage we deal, and with the exception of a few points over here, I think we've accomplished that with this build. Now, there's a couple things we need to talk about with the skills that arms training Lohar uses. What I want to call attention to is the fact that you want to pick skills that do the least amount of damage to whatever pairing you've chosen. They're the ones that are going to be least effective against the combo that you're using, and you got to keep track of all your own stuff here. So, look, if you're using a commander that does shielding, which I would recommend, you're not going to want to pick armor-piercing spears. If you're doing high amounts of skill damage, which we were, you're not going to want to pick things that reduce the amount of skill damage that you deal until much later on. So as a huge damage T5 beater, I went for Surging Strike as the first skill I chose every time, because Lohar rarely got to 100 rage, especially in the beginning, so it was kind of like he had no skill gain at all. And that's the goal. Get the things that are going to make it basically like he's got no gain whatsoever. After Surging Strike, I'd recommend something like Seething Wrath or Provoke. Those seem like they had a fairly minimal effect for most of the combos that I was choosing. In a similar vein, I did think that Ancestral Protection was a fine one to pick early. The downside here is that they're living longer, and they do deal some extra damage. The upside was that I was killing them so fast that I kind of didn't care, and a 10% chance for that to happen, I wasn't too worried about it. That could go either really well or really poorly, depending on how early in that fight that fires off. From there, I did really like No Retreat, because by the time they get below 50%, they're not doing all that much to me anyways, so sure, take a bunch of buffs. I already got you below 50%. You're already mine, Lohar. From here, I did tend to lean toward some tougher choices between Duelist Breath, which is going to start to reduce the amount of skill damage that I'm dealing, and other skills like Ancestral Will. I think that the less terrifying was Duelist Breath, even though I'm going to start to take a lot more damage over here. There was a chance that this skill would do nothing at all, except maybe make me take a little bit more normal attack damage, so I opted for that route instead of going with this other skill over here, which was guaranteed to reduce my effectiveness every single time I was in battle. To that end, there was one other skill I saved toward the very end, and that was Malignant Venom. Now, I'm on the fence about this one. If you're killing him really fast, he's not actually getting that much benefit from this. And the way to think about it is that, like, look, you are stacking the amount of damage that you're going to be taking over time from all sources, which is a big deal. But by the time this stacks up to 10, where it's like, oh, now I'm taking 10% more damage, he's already at least half health or lower, and most of the time I had him nearly dead. So it could be that taking Venom sooner might have been a good choice for a high power player. For a mid-tier or new player to the game, this is definitely one of the last things you would pick or not pick at all, because there's a very good chance that you are going to get the worst end of the deal with a skill like this one. In a similar vein, this is not a skill you would pick early if you are not a super high power account. Now, it's conceivable I was choosing this over here, Wild Rage, later than I should have, but getting silenced was really terrifying in my eyes. I'm firing active skills all the time, so I really didn't want to get silenced. That seemed horrible to me. And in a similar vein, this was also one of the very last skills that I would ultimately choose. The actual last skill I would choose, given that I was doing so much shielding in almost every combo, was Armor Piercing Spears. 20% extra guaranteed damage every single turn actually adds up to be a lot. It does add up to be a lot. Over the course of 10 turns, you add that all together, and that's like having 100% damage for one turn. That's not really how that works, because the 20% extra damage on the first turn is a lot more damage to you than the 20% on the last turn, but you get the idea. So that's how I would be thinking about the skills here. If you're using a lot of shielding, which I think is great with Alexander the Great, this is one of the last ones you want to pick. And in general, I think the 20% damage boost is way worse all the time than the stacking Venom, which, like, gosh, you'd have to have the fight run for a long time, at least 30 seconds in most of your fights, for this to not be the worst skill. So with all of that said, I will be really eager to hear what combos you use to really slay it in this event. There are a few more optimizations you can make. As we mentioned, health is the best stat in the game. So if you can swap your City Skin to health, if you can go in and get a health rune, that would be most optimal. If you haven't seen the videos where we talk about that, I'll throw a couple cards up in the top now where you can go and check those out. We also wanted to do cavalry because on our main account, our special unit is a cavalry unit, and we have bonus cavalry stats, which I think definitely contributed to our effectiveness in that fight. If you enjoyed this video, throw a like onto the vid. Consider that subscription for more videos just like this, helping you win in events. And until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.